is the air pump you need. Do you understand me? The Fluval Q5 is the air pump you need. You want to breed fish, or maybe you just want to expand the amount of tanks you have, but you ran out of space. You can't build really a fish room, but you've got a little corner in your house you can put a rack in. Maybe, just maybe, if the right air pump was on the market, you could set up a rack of tanks today and run one air pump. I got an answer for you. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Trent Wel-Don with Wel-Don Tanks, and today's video I am excited for. I've been talking about this one for quite a while. I've kind of been alluding to this one, and I've been taking so long to get this video filmed for two reasons. One, I wanted the fish room up and almost running to show you the application of it, of what you can actually do with this air pump. And two, I wanted to test this air pump for a few weeks, almost months, before I actually gave you my solid opinion on said air pump. So if you are interested in setting up what I think is a great combination of rack system and air pump that can fit in small spaces even, this video is for you. So the pump that I have been alluding to of what I think is one of the, if not the best air pump for a small fish room or a small rack of tanks, is the Fluval Q5. Now this pump honestly took me by surprise, and now when I say small, I want to kind of put some context to it. I'm going to be running over 25 tanks in this fish room, and I have numerous airdrops past that because I have numerous sponge filters in some tanks. I'm going to be running in some brancher hatcheries, breeder boxes, all of that to take effect. Now the Fluval Q5 though has been running all the temporary tanks upstairs in my studio before all the fish transitioned down here. And now I've been in this situation before. So the Fluval Q5 is actually a very small, compact pump, but I purposely went with the pump that was rated a little higher, because I was running 5 tanks on long airline runs. The longer the airline run, the more air it's going to take to reach that. Deeper the tank's also going to affect that. I also wanted something that was not large, and I also needed to find that pump that was quiet. The number one quest that we go on is a quiet air pump. We don't want to hear the annoying rattling around as you're trying to work. I don't mind the noise from the sponge filters, oddly enough, but when you hear that rattle of an air pump, it's obnoxious and people hate it. Now, when I'm in my studio and I'm live streaming, I can't have a pump in the background, tearing that up. So this is a unique design, and quite frankly, I compare it, it's like a diaphragm pump and a linear air piston pump had a baby and was born the Fluval Q5. Now, I believe other people on YouTube have shown this, but they don't really talked about it, the application of this is perfect for a small fish room or even a rack of tanks. So in this fish room, we are running the linear air piston pump that's 45 liters of air that Aquarium Co-op was nice enough to send to me. And so it technically is sponsored by Aquarium Co-op because I sent me the air pump for free, and it has now run 2 fish rooms, very effectively. So using a smaller air pump to run a rack of tanks is a unique opportunity for a lot of people to expand their fish keeping hobby, because people think that you have to have a massive air pump to run a lot of tanks. Now, I've been that guy. If you've followed the YouTube channel for a while, I've been that guy that I've used one pump to one tank, and you quickly run out of outlets, and you quickly get confused of what air pump goes to what, and now you're running 7, 10 air pumps. Once upon a time, I think we're almost 3 years now, and I was actually transitioning into my last fish room before I moved down to here to Texas, is I had, I think, upwards of 12 USB nano air pumps running in my laundry room. I stacked a bunch of tanks in there to get preparation for it. I had numerous USB air pumps running. I think it was up to like 12. Then I transitioned over to a cheap linear air piston pump, which is good, right? It produces a lot of power, but it was also extremely loud. So it was quite obnoxious. And I have a whole video on that. I'll link those in the cards and everything, and I overlaid some B-roll of all that. But the Fluval Q5, I'm going to call it the Q5. Much easier, much faster. And they do have smaller versions of this pump if you needed something different, but I truly feel this Fluval Q5 air pump, and I think it was roughly about $50 when I bought it. I'll make sure to have links down below where you can purchase this along with new pricing and where it may come. But I was able to find it local at my Pet Supplies Plus, I think the new store is. I got new stores, so I got to get used to them again. But this paired with either like the 4-foot Husky rack or the 3-foot Muscle rack, I think is a perfect combination for this air pump. Like an absolute perfect combination for this air pump. I mean, I've used both the 4-foot and the 3-foot tanks. I mean, they're in the fish room right now. We have 2 4-foot tanks, and we have, or 4-foot rack. We have 1 3-foot rack, and you could run numerous tanks with this air pump and then still have air to run a baby brine shrimp hatcher, run a breeder box. So I think it's a perfect pairing, and they're the right size tanks that you can actually, put them into a laundry room, actually put them into a garage, or the bathroom even. Like, there's ways to do this. So I want to show you the capability of this pump again, because I think it is just, it's phenomenal. It's not going to run the entire air system here, but for those starting out who don't have this, you can still have plenty of things with this air pump without running 10 air pump single tube lines. This pump has been doing it all for me. I'm running 5 sponge filters and a brine shrimp hatchery off this tank with no problems at all. So let me show you how I done it, and to prove that concept, I brought it down here into the fish room. I'm gonna connect some airline to it and actually connect through a manifold up to a couple tanks in here to show you the power of this little air pump from Fluval. So currently, I have the air pump hooked up here, and I have it connected to 5 tanks here in the fish room. I kind of just snagged airlines off where I knew they could go, and the way I'm controlling that is I built a homemade manifold to run. There's actually 1 output on this pump. I connected that output to a manifold, and now I'm running 5 airlines off of that. You can buy manifolds, you can make manifolds. They're super easy. Now with the manifold though, you do have to dial in the air to actually make sure air is going to every single tank the way you need it to be. But right now, just to kind of give you an idea, it's running a sponge filter in a 29-gallon, a sponge filter in 2 20-gallons, and 2 sponge filters in a 40 breeder off this 1 little air pump. Now, the audio is not the best in the fish room, but can you hear it? Like, it's not crazy loud. So I've done this in the past of using a simple decibel meter. It's nothing insane. It's a free app I downloaded. But like us here talking, it's going between normal conversation inside of a car, and we're bouncing between. So if I'm talking, it bounces around 80 decibels is average. If we're just quiet, it's like 48 decibels. So let me actually show you here of what this decibel meter is doing here. So let's get back into this. Okay. So us talking, roughly around that 80 decibel mark, maybe a little higher as I peak. But let me show you how loud this air pump is if we're right next to the air pump. So it's staying right around that 57 decibel mark, which when on the app was saying a quiet home. Now that may be loud for some individuals, but I really think if you pair this with one of these racks, you could put 4 20 gallons, a couple 20 logs, some 10-gallon tanks, run air to them, and then still be able to run like a brine shrimp hatchery off this. So pairing this air pump with one of these racks, I think is a great combination for individuals who are seeking to get into the hobby on a much, like kind of a higher level, a higher scale of, instead of keeping, I have 1 tank but I want to breed fish, but I have this random 3-foot spot in, perfect. pair it with the muscle rack from Home Depot. Give you a better look at kind of my Jimmy rig system. I ran out of end cap, so duct tape came to the rescue. Honestly, a simple manifold that I made myself using metal air valves, piece of 3/4 PVC pipe, one on the back for the airline to go into. This combination, this Fluval Q5 is seriously an underrated air pump for individuals that are entering this hobby. Individuals that are entering, which we can do a dramatic effect. The Fluval Q5 is the air pump you need. Do you understand me? The Fluval Q5 is the air pump you need. Okay, but for real though, if you have that little bit of space in your house that you can do tanks in, but you don't have to have a fish room to breed fish. This is one of the things I always try to convey in my videos and the things I post is take what you see and adapt it to your needs. I've taken air systems and adapted it to what I need. And I would recommend, for the price point, I would recommend the Fluval Q5 over all the other cheap linear air piston pumps you're gonna find on Amazon. I've used them in the past. They're loud. They may produce more air in a sense, but if you do it right, I would say the Fluval Q5 will run anywhere between 5 to 10 tanks, depending on the length of airline and the size of tank. So the depth of the tank will determine how much air needs to be pushed down into a filter. So if you had a rack of 10 gallons, a rack of 20 gallons, the 3-foot rack with 20 longs paired with this air pump, that's perfect. The 4-foot rack with a couple 10-gallon tanks, maybe some 20s, I think you can get away with it. Like the Fluval Q5, highly underrated pump, and I honestly am very impressed with this air pump, both on the sound and the amount of power this thing has for not much power consumption basis. So I know I've been putting this one off for a while. I honestly wanted to show you guys the rack system in the fish room. I wanted to show you the air pump in the fish room to kind of give you an idea of what can be done with this. Also, all the tanks are on my floor in my studio where all the fish are being currently held, so it's kind of a mess to film in there. But the Fluval Q5, I highly, highly recommend this air pump. And then I highly recommend if you pair this with a rack system, you can do anything you want to do with this air pump. So guys, I truly do hope that this was beneficial for you. And I'm curious, let me know down in the comment section below. What is your favorite air pump? Are you looking to add a rack of tanks? Do you have a small area you can breed fish in? And was this the piece of information you were looking for? So I always like to hear from you guys. And if you found this video beneficial, I would highly suggest you hit the subscribe button because 90% of you are not subscribed to this channel. And we do crazy stuff like this often. So guys, thank you so much for joining me. I truly do appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next one.